Hi, how's it going? Bob DeBoo here for Open Studio. Today we're going to practice sequences. So a sequence, what is a musical sequence? It's a melodic phrase. It's repeated at different pitches, just to break it down. It's a very organized way to also practice scales, and it sounds really interesting. It gets utilized a lot in soloing on any instrument. So you could practice what we're going to work on today on any instrument, of course, but we're going to do it on the bass. And why should we practice sequences? As I just said, it's something that we can put into our solos to make them more interesting and have some organization inside of there too. So we're going to look at one sequence and we'll break that down really quick. And then we're going to move that through 4 different scale types or chord qualities. And then we're going to look at how we can put those sequences or those concepts into some solo lines that we can use right away. So let's get started practicing some sequences here with what I'm calling 4 views of a sequence. Let's get started. So let's first break down what the sequence is that we're going to be practicing today. This is based off of a triad. Okay, so we're going to start in the key of F major. Now the triad, if we just think that triad based off of the first notes of the F major scale, we've got F, A, and C, right? So that's the F major triad. That's the pattern that would be 1, 3, and 5. But now what if we change that, and our sequence today is going to be 3, 1, 3, 5. So if we did that here, it would be in the key of, or on the F major triad, it'd be A, F, A, C. Does that make sense? So 3, 1, 3, 5. Now if you do the same thing to G minor, which would be the next step up in the F major scale, instead of playing G, B flat, D, we play 3, 1, 3, 5, or B flat, G, B flat, D. So now keep going up the F major scale. We're breaking it up, and you can see on the graphic here. So if we move on to A minor, and then B flat major, right? C major, D minor, E diminished, and then we're back at F major again. So this is the sequence that we're working on today. What we're going to do though is to move that into 4 different scale types or chord qualities, and then we're going to look at putting them into some soloistic ideas. But this is our sequence pattern that we're going to be working on today. So let's take this sequence 3, 1, 3, 5 up the F major scale. So we could think about this being the F major 7th chord. It's also all of these other chords, G minor 7, A minor 7, B flat major 7, etc., etc. But we're just thinking about it as a 1 chord right now. Try this with me. We're going to do it 2 octaves. So let's start this off fairly slow. We're going to think about it just straight 8ths for right now. We don't need to worry about it swinging. Let's do it like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So this is F major, G minor, A minor, B flat major, C major, D minor, E diminished, and then F major. And we're going to keep going up. We're going to look at everything in the key of, or with the bass, the root note of F today. That E diminished again, and we'll end on the A. Got it? Let's try it again a little bit quicker. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Next octave. Keep going. C, D minor, diminished, and finally to the A, which is the 3rd of the F major scale, right? Let's try it one more time, a little bit brighter. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep going. Great. So the really tricky part with the upright is getting over this, getting across this G where the harmonic is, right? But there's ways to do that, of course. You just want it to sound smooth and find the fingering that works the best for you. I tend to like when I'm going up this way, I'll hit the fifth of each of these triads that I'm thinking of, like 3, 1, 3, 5. I'll usually go to my pinky on that 5. And that sets me up for my next triad. So there I went G minor, so B flat, G, B flat, D. And that sets me up to get C of the A minor triad, up to E. So I'm doing my shift kind of in between these triads. Okay, so let's do the same sequence now, but with a different scale. We're going to do the same pattern or sequence on the F melodic minor scale. Just to bring everybody up, in case you don't know, the F melodic minor scale is exactly the same as the F major scale, except that there's an A flat. It functions in a very similar way, like if we're in a minor key, this would be like the 1 chord. So it's F, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D natural, E, F. But we're going to do that sequence through, and you can look at the graphic here. Above it, I'm saying what each one of these triads are that we can think about while we practice this, just to help us kind of get this under our fingers and in our ears. So it's also just a good way to practice any other scale. Do these in all the keys, do these with any other scale that you're trying to practice, make some sequences. You can just improvise and change these around too. But, you know, the fun is to come up with your own or hear what other people are doing and try to practice that too. So let's try it on F melodic minor now. We'll do it slow just to get started. Now you'll notice on the 3rd chord, we're looking at an augmented triad. So we're gonna play A flat, augmented, but starting on the 3rd. So here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. G minor, A flat augmented, B flat major, this is C, now D diminished, E diminished, then F minor again. Keep going up, G minor, A flat augmented, B flat major, C major, D flat diminished, and then E diminished to F minor too, right? Cool. Now keep watching, because we're gonna learn how to put this into some solo ideas. Right now we're just doing our due diligence. We're doing our weight training. We want to keep working on these patterns, really get them under our fingers so we don't have to think too much about them, so we can use them musically. That said, let's practice this line once more, a little bit brighter. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's try quicker even. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go. Now let's look at changing this sequence into a different type of scale or chord sound. We're going to look at F7 or F Mixolydian. Of course, F7 is a 5 chord that wants to lead into B flat. Okay, the dominant chord wants to lead into the 1 chord. So this is basically us practicing the major version, except we're thinking about it at the major version of B flat, except we're thinking about it starting from F or F7. Okay, so the only difference between this F major and then F dominant 7th is the E flat, okay, is the 7th. We're going to lower that E down a half step into E flat. Otherwise we're in B flat territory, right? But fingering wise and thinking about it on the bass, it's F major, but with that lowered 7th, okay? Let's try it, let's practice it. Same idea, 3, 1, 3, 5, and we're going to put that through each of these chords. You can see the triads above the written text here, or the notation. That'll kind of help you too. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now this is A diminished because we have an E flat there. Now here's C minor, D minor, E flat major, then F major. Keep going up. G minor, A diminished, B flat major, C minor, D minor, E flat major, and that gets us there. And we could keep going up too if we wanted to. Let's try that a little bit brighter. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. All right, let's try it even a little bit faster. 1, 2, 3, go. Excellent. So if you're into this, consider checking out the Bass All Access Pass over at Open Studio. We practice stuff just like this on a weekly basis. And you also get access to all of the great courses by Christian McBride, Ruben Rogers, a few by myself, the Peter Martin Trio, and just a wealth of information with which you can practice and get better. That's what we're all about here at Open Studio, is everybody just getting better at what we're doing. So let's look at our fourth chord quality or scale that we're going to do this over. We're going to use the same sequence, remember, 3, 1, 3, 5. You could change the sequence around too, of course. You could do different inversions, but this is what we're practicing today. Let's do it with Dorian now. So Dorian, of course, is the second major mode. So if we think that F Dorian, that's got to be in the key of E flat major, right? So we're going to practice this scale thinking of it as F minor 7, but it has all of the same notes that are in the E flat major scale. That's important to note, especially for when we get into, just in a minute here, moving into soloistic type of lines like over a 2-5-1. So let's get through F minor 7 and then we'll get to that good stuff too. So here is F Dorian. Try it with me. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. This is G minor, A flat major, B flat major, C minor, D diminished, E flat major, F minor. So everything fits in the Dorian mode here. Right? So it still sounds organized. It sounds like it's moving in a direction. It's ascending like that. It's really nice. Let's try it a little bit faster. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's push it. Let's go even faster, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. So now we've looked at 4 different scale types or chord qualities with which to play this sequence over. Right? That's our 4 different ways on the sequence. Now let's look at some real life situations that we could use this sequence into some solo ideas. Okay? Now we could just play the sequence like over a 2-5-1, like the pattern you see now, where we're just thinking of, okay, it's F Dorian, B flat Mixolydian, E flat major. But again, remember, all of that is just E flat major. So this line that we're about to play here, you could think of it scale, 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 and changing, but really it's all, you could say it's all F Dorian. You could say it's all B flat Mixolydian. You could say it's all E flat major. We're not really changing the chord quality or the scale quality or the key center, if that makes sense. That being said, let's try it out, okay? So we're thinking F minor, and we'll just do this slow. I'm gonna do this out of time a little bit. So we're playing the F Dorian. That's our first part of the sequence. Just keep going up E flat major, but now we can think about that as B flat 7. Same here with E flat major, but we've not really changed the sound of the sequence, and we've landed on the 3rd of E flat by hitting that G right there. Let's try this again. Let's try it in tempo a little bit brighter. 1, 2, 3, go. Right? So it all lines up with all of the different chords that we're playing, right? This shape, all of that fits in F minor 7. All of that fits in B flat major 7. And that, of course, fits in E flat major. Let's look at our next soloistic example using a sequence. Now this is, we're going to get a little bit more interesting because we're going to use part of the sequence and then we're going to pivot, we're going to change direction and stop using the sequence and start using some scale. There's also a little bit of syncopation in this line, which will help to make this more interesting. If you were just to play that sequence like what we just did in that previous example on a 2-5-1, it's it's cool, but it could be more interesting. If we add in a little bit of rhythmic variety, some scale steps, sometimes, next up we're going to look at some chromaticism and utilizing some different ideas. Let's play this together. Not too fast. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now I'm not really concerned with swinging. I'm not really worried about that just yet, but we do want that rhythmic content as we're soloing and thinking about that. I'm really just thinking about note choices now and using that sequential information. So where's the sequence? Obviously that's part of the sequence. Now what is that? That's this sequence, right? Except we don't go back up to that B flat. We're adding in some rhythm or adding in some syncopation. And that's just going up the sequence again a little bit further. Now what we're doing here is we're hitting this E flat down to D natural and going down the scale to get to the third of E flat down in this register instead of up there, and putting another little interval to kind of finish our phrase. Let's try it a little bit brighter together. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Cool? When we try swinging it a little bit, let's see how we can make that feel. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool, and now it's starting to sound more like something you might put in a solo, perhaps. Right? But it's using that sequence, and we're trying to get clever with it by adding in some different elements that we can use just in our solo bag. So let's look at another example of using this same sequence, this 3-1-3-5, but sneaking it into a solo line. Play this with me. We're going to swing this one. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so what do we have there? Do, 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 dee. Now here's our sequence, right? In the F major idea. Then we're going here as if we're going to keep the sequence going, like on the C, right? But what happens again, and that's just chromatic leading up to the first note of this sequence. So I'm trying to think ahead that I'm going to land on the 5th of this F major on beat 1. Now this is just going up the F major scale, or whatever you want to think of it, getting to that B flat, a little enclosure to get to the C, and then just some bebop language to kind of fit it. So we're hitting that sequence on the first full measure of this example, and then playing around with it a little bit. So it's used in conjunction with some other solo material again. Let's play it one more time. 1, 2, 3. Let's look at another example now. This is, again, over a 2-5-1 in the key of E flat. It's a major 2-5-1, by the way. We're going to look at a minor 2-5-1 in a second. But here is just another example of using a sequence and then using some chromaticism, pivoting, and rhythmic information to make an interesting line utilizing the sequences we just practiced. Play this line with me. I'll count 3 beats and then we'll be in on the end of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, cool. So it sounds like a good line that we could use, a bebop-inspired line, right? A bunch of eighth notes in there. But what's happening? Let's dissect it. So we're hitting on the and of 4, We're starting this phrase on the end of 4 because that can add interest to our lines. We don't always want to start on beat 1 or always start on the end of 4 or anywhere. We want to be flexible inside of that, but that's another story. So we're starting on the end of 4. So that's like our F Dorian. Or you could just think of it in the key of E flat, of course, as we mentioned before. So that's literally the sequence going up. 3, 1, 3, 5, 3, 1, 3, 5. That's me, that's us enclosing to this F. Using a little chromaticism there. Chromaticism to get to the 5th, broken thirds, and then a bigger interval there. So it's a fairly interesting line using that sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool, it works, right? Let's look at another real life usage of this sequence. This time we're going to bounce around in some melodic minor ideas. We're going to move it around over 2-5-1. Just really quick, we don't want to get too far into this, but you can play a melodic minor up a minor third from a half diminished chord. So if we're on D half diminished, you can play F melodic minor. When we get to G7 alt, when you get to an altered chord like this, the really common way to play this is to think a half step up and play a melodic minor scale. So that would be A flat melodic minor on the G7. Then when we get to C minor, it's like we've gotten into a home key. So we could say C melodic minor there, and you can see that written in the notation here. So let's play this line, and we can see how the sequence is built into it, and then also how it's addressing the harmony of the moment. Okay? So let's just play this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and here we didn't keep it real diatonic. You know, earlier we were using chromaticism, but this is us straight up using different scales, right? We're doing F melodic minor, A flat melodic minor, C melodic minor, but we're using this sequence 3 1 3 5 3 1 3 5. Now doing the same thing in A flat. Earlier that was just F melodic minor, but do the same thing in A flat now. So the third of A flat melodic minor, B natural or C flat if you want to say that. To E flat, same thing here, and then we're landing on D on the C minor chord. And you'll notice the note that we're starting with, A flat, B flat, B, D flat, D. We're moving up just as little as we possibly can. We're going up sequentially throughout this scale or this chord, or the chord of the moment, right? But we're keeping it organized in that fashion. We're not jumping around like something like that. You know what I mean? It makes more sequential sense. Cool. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Excellent. So that is 4 different ways that we can practice this sequence and then put it into some real life solo situations. Keep the ball rolling, you know, like practice this, change up the sequence pattern. Of course, go through the different qualities, like thinking different roots. So you could obviously do B flat major, B flat melodic minor, B flat 7, B flat Dorian, E flat, A flats, D flats, G flats, etc., etc. Hit all the keys, 2 octaves. Always want that range that we want to be able to do. Practice these descending as well. Of course, vary the speed. Speed it up, slow it down. Make sure you can do it slow. When you're improvising with these lines too, I definitely suggest doing that really slowly so your ears have time to adjust and digest the information that you've been practicing, but also think about composing or improvising in the moment as best you can with the clarity. You do that slowly and you start to speed that up and you'll get these lines coming out that sound like what you want to hear. Make sense? So again, my name is Bob DeBoo. Thanks for joining me today. Happy practicing. See you next time. Peace.